possibly the worst, but definitely the ugliest car that Aston Martin ever built, has been added to Forza Horizon Lagonda. At the time of recording, all you have to do to get hold of this car is complete 20 points in this week's festival playlist, which is the winter season, which, as you can see, I've done by doing the Only Bulls and Horses trial, the 2 Event Lab challenges, and the photo challenge, as well as the 2 monthly rivals that I did back at the beginning of the series. Over in the backstage shop this week, they've added the Ferrari 599 GTO, and I think the 155. Originally in the vote it was the 599XX, but then Forza realised that wasn't a hard to find car and you can buy it in the auto show, so they gifted us all one and swapped the 599 GTO instead. If you haven't gone and collected yours yet, it's over in My Horizon and on Message Center, and it'll be over in gifts if you haven't already claimed it. If we go back to backstage though, you'll see that the voting this week is either the 512 TR and the Citroen box, or the 850 that isn't a Volvo and a Italian box. So as you can see, I've voted for the one with the Testarossa in, because I would kind of quite like another one. The Lagonda was never actually badged or sold under the Aston Martin mark, but under the separate Lagonda name, which was in fact a completely different car company before it was bought by Aston Martin a few decades earlier. The Lagonda was actually rumoured for this game for the longest time, and to be honest, it doesn't really fit this month's theme. This third vehicle in the 90'S update is originally from the 70s. Yes, technically this Series 4 model is from 1990, but that was the final year of production of any Lagondas, and they were only produced in January, so it's stretching the 90s theme somewhat. Back when this shape of Lagonda originally launched, the Lagonda Series 2, in 1976, it was trying to be a futuristic luxury car, and therefore was overloaded with lots of tech that did many things, until it didn't, because most of it would often fail. It was also ridiculously expensive, mostly because of all of that tech, so sales were catastrophic. In fact, only 645 cars were ever sold, with only 105 of them being this Series 4 model that we have in-game. And it wasn't particularly fast. It was fitted with a 5.3 litre V8, producing only 289 brake horsepower, which is less than the DB5 produced. But being a large 4-door saloon, it weighed over 2 tons, and you can tell it was built before Adrian Newey was hired by Aston Martin because it has the aerodynamic properties of a brick. This means the Lagonda is right at the bottom of C-Class with a rating of just 502 here in Horizon 5. Before I went back to the main festival though, to look at upgrade options, we drag raced the old, slow Lagonda against an old, slow Bentley, only to discover the Lagonda was, well, very slow. So then we put it up against a Cadillac limousine instead, which was closer, but the Lagonda still lost rather embarrassingly, although to be fair it is a substantially older car. Luckily, despite how ugly this car is, there are some rather nice manufacturer colours. There's of course the black that you obtain the car in, but there's also a rather nice dark blue, a very nice dark green, a silvery grey, quite a nice metallic blue, a red, another silvery grey, which honestly I can't really tell the difference. Slightly lighter maybe. A mint green, which either looks brilliant or awful. I can't quite decide. I think maybe it looks brilliant, but it would eventually look awful. And a white. Yeah. I have a better idea though. I give you...
cheese.
Over in the upgrade shop, it's rather disappointing. Under aero and appearance, we only have a Forza splitter, which is sort of under a splitter, and the Forza rear wing, which it could be worse. It could have been the other one, but it's still pretty bad, and I'm not really sure what the point is of trying to improve the aerodynamics of a car that is, well, this shape. There are, of course, also some engine swaps. There's an 8.4 litre V10, I think out of a Viper. There's a 3.5 litre V8, which we think is from a Ferrari 355. and there's a 6.5 litre V12. You can, of course, also all-wheel drive convert the Lagonda, twin-turbo it, or supercharge it. Then you have all of your usual tyre compounds, front width and rear width options, track width if you want to fill out the arches on your block of cheese, and then we have all of your usual drivetrain, gearbox, drive line and diff options, as well as all of your handling and platform and handling and platform options. If we head over to weight reduction and go with race weight reduction, you can get weight down from 2,064 kilos to 1,625, but that's still heavier than most large SUVs. And then, of course, there's all of your engine upgrades. As usual at this point, we went and found some B-Class tunes, applying one from K1Z Bard, which brings power up to 525 brake horsepower and weight down to 1,611 kilos, which is still far too heavy, but it's the best that could be done. As well as, of course, giving the Lagonda a lick of paint, going for an Aston Martin colour called Hong Kong Pink, and for a change, heading into B-Class street racing rather than road racing, managing to join for the first of 3 races at the Jungle Descent, where we found that although Lagonda could just about keep up on the faster sections and straights, it really didn't enjoy the tighter corners. The first race ended with the 2nd, 3rd and 4th place finish for the Lagondas, with us only being beaten by an RX-7 that appeared to have spun during the race, and with an Abarth 124 taking the win. The second race was the Cruce del Valle, which was a similar story. After a fairly boring race, the Lagonda finished in 3rd, 4th and 5th, this time being beaten by both the 124 and the RX-7. And finally, it was off to the Canyon Run, where a couple of cars decided to drive into a mountain, promoting the Lagondas to 2nd and 3rd, although Elf was immediately pushed off a bridge by some traffic cars, which meant I found myself in 2nd, where somehow I stayed until the end of the race, achieving a podium in the Lagonda. So the Lagonda had somehow achieved one good result, but it wasn't all that nice to drive, and it was clear that it was quite away from being anywhere near competitive in B-Class, mostly because of its huge weight, which is no great surprise really. We did then go into a second set of races, but I was the only one stupid enough to stay in the Lagonda for another 3 of them. This predictably didn't go much better. We started at the coast run where not much happened, but just before the finish I lost a place after hitting a stationary Golf, and then immediately gained a place when I passed a stationary S2000. Yes, Volkswagen and Honda apparently make HP pencils now. Then it was back to the Jungle Descent again. This time I finished all the way down in 5th, and the last race was the Cruce del Valle again, with an even worse finish in 6th place. So after this I immediately removed the tune. I'll just keep the Lagonda in the garage as a slow land yacht that I probably won't drive terribly often. And that is going to do it for a very first look at this brand new Lagonda here in Forza Horizon 5. Now that we've removed the tune, and for the time being I am going with that minty green, and I'll kind of decide if I like it or not further down the line. It's a cool thing to have added to the game despite being completely hideous, and it's quite a rare car, although that's probably because it's terrible. It doesn't really fit the theme of a 90s update. Yes, it's from January 1990, but that's only just into the 90s, and considering it started production in the 1970s, I don't think it really fits this update. But it is great to finally have it in-game after it was rumoured so long ago as a car that was coming to Horizon 5. As you may expect, it's slow, although I think it's slower than any of us thought was possible. Developing less than 300 horsepower from a V8 engine is pretty awful, but maybe that just shows the age of the car. It's also ridiculously heavy, so that means it's difficult to make it useful for anything. Even though it starts down at the bottom of C, it's difficult to build it into anything useful. But yeah, it is still a cool thing to have, and it's probably the most interesting car in this series, because all of the others are either recycled or very similar to things we already have. As ever though, do let me know your thoughts on the Lagonda here in Forza Horizon 5, but for today's video that's going to be all, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next one very soon.